All right, good afternoon, class. This is the lecture for uh, economics class, sixth period. We're going to talk about another type of business today. We talked about sole proprietorships, we talked about partnerships, and now we're going to talk about corporations. In fact, I think some people got some businesses confused with corporations from the last assignment. I believe I asked you to go downtown or look around your your downtown area of where you live and look at the businesses that exist there and look for ones that might be sole proprietorships or partnerships. And some of the ones mentioned were companies like Kentucky Fried Chicken or Target or IKEA. And when I see companies like that, I don't think of sole proprietorships and I don't think of partnerships. I think of either corporations or franchises. And sure enough, if I went and looked, and Target is a corporation, IKEA is a franchise, Kentucky Fried Chicken, I believe, is a corporation. So a lot of those ones with brand recognition are going to be corporations or franchises. The sole proprietorships are the ones that are kind of like the pizza place over by Starbucks, that's kind of an independent business, or the taqueria there, or maybe even the ice cream shop over there. Those are going to be more sole proprietorships or partnerships, right? So let's look at corporations. What are they? Well, we can see just from this picture that this is one person working in like a factory of some sort, right? And producing a lot of whatever these are. Can't even see what those are, but maybe it's cornbread, maybe it's some kind of lemon cake mixture. I don't know. Learning objectives. So we're going to explain the characteristics of corporation, including the creation of stocks and bonds, and analyze the advantages and the disadvantages. Compare and contrast corporate combinations, and describe the role of multinational corporations. Some key terms: corporation. It's going to be a company, a business where the stockholders basically own the company. Stocks are basically a portion of the company. You can think of it as like if you break a company into a million pieces, you get one piece, and that's ownership. Pieces of ownership. Closely held corporations are companies where they don't want to let anybody buy the stocks. They want just a certain group of people. A lot of times it's like families. Like a big family might say, we're going to have a corporation. If you want to be a member, you can buy stocks. We're going to give you a certain amount of stocks to start out, whatever it is. That's a closely held corporation. Publicly held corporations, corporation that any of us can buy stocks in, right? We just go to the stock exchange, find out where it's traded, whether it's the the Nasdaq or the Dow or whatever it is, and we buy the stocks, right, through some kind of stockbroker. A bond is when you buy something, and it's an agreement to pay not only what you paid for the bond, but also interest. So it's a little more secure than a stock, because a stock, they don't make any assurance when you buy stocks. It's like, this could go up, this could go down. If it goes up a lot, you make a lot of money. If it goes down a lot, you lose a lot of money. But with a bond, it's more controlled. They might say, okay, you buy this bond, in 10 years, this bond's going to be worth twice as much. All you got to do is hold on to the bond. Don't sell it. Just hold on to it for 10 years, and it's going to be worth twice as much. Okay, that's how a bond works. Certificate of incorporation is And by the way, stocks and bonds, the thing they have in common is they're both ways for a corporation or a government, in the case of bonds, there are ways for those entities to earn to acquire money. Say they need money to buy something, a merger or something like that. They have to issue stocks or bonds so that people buy those, so that they actually have the money to do what they need to do, right? Certificates of incorporation, those are the documents that basically the legal documents that say how a corporation is going to operate. And you have to have these to have a corporation. You have to get these from the state government. Dividends are basically payments to stockholders. If you think about it, if a stock is a portion, a piece of a company in terms of ownership, shouldn't you get profit for that ownership? And some companies, they believe the same thing, and they say, well, we're going to give dividends. So if you own, the more stocks you own in this company, the more dividends you're going to get at the end of the year when we have our profits. A lot of companies don't do that though, and a lot of companies only do that sometimes. And they say, and the reason they don't do it is they say, hey, we need those profits to grow. So you'll get your reward when we grow and the company grows and your stock is worth more money, right? So that's the way they do that. Limited liability, we learned about that with partnerships. Limited liability means that you're only liable for the money you put in. You're only going to lose your investment if you lose, right? You're not gonna, they can never come after you. Like if, say you buy stocks in like the gun manufacturers, right? Or cigarette companies or something like that. And say they get sued, right? And say these companies have to pay billions of dollars, to, because of the lawsuits. The limit of liability will make it so that they can never come after your own house or your own bank account. It's only the money you have invested that you could lose. Whereas if you owned a company, like a cigarette company or a gun manufacturer or something like that, that's kind of high risk, and somebody sues you and you're sole proprietorship owner, guess what? If they sue you for $1 million and your company is only worth 500,000, then they start looking at your house, your bank account, whatever, and they'll take whatever they can to get the money that they feel that they are owed, right? So that's why limited liability is important in partnerships and also corporations. Horizontal merger is when two companies that are competitors merge into one, right? Vertical merger is when you have like maybe a company that produces one thing and it's related to the company below it or above it, but it's a little bit different. They're like a different point in the product or the service and development, right? So an example of a vertical merger might be like Time Warner. Time Warner it started off as the Warner Brothers, and they made movies and they made TV shows and stuff like that. I think even cartoons. I think like Bugs Bunny, I think was Warner Brothers. But at some point in time, so they had the content, right? They had the content, and then at some point in time, they said, you know what, we want to get into being a cable provider. So now Time Warner, if you go to some parts of the country, Time Warner is actually the Comcast, right? Here we have Comcast. Over there they have the Time Warner. And so they own the content, but now they own the means of distributing the content to consumers, right? So that's a vertical merger when they bought the cable company. Conglomerate is when you have a corporation that might make a bunch of different things, but they're not related. So a conglomerate might be like a company that makes hand sanitizer, but they also make bug spray, or they also make um, mouth mouthwash or something. So they're different products. They have nothing to do with each other, and when they're brought together under one corporate umbrella, that would be a conglomerate. Um, Multinational companies or corporations are companies that work in multiple different countries, right? And then when they do, they bring a little bit of the culture from their original country over to wherever they set up, and they set up a whole new like company there. They have to follow the laws of the new country. It might be McDonald's, it might be something else, and it's still recognizable if you go to McDonald's in China or Spain or wherever. It looks like a McDonald's, but it's a multinational company now because it's set up over there and over here. Actually, I don't know if McDonald's actually has a corporate office over there. I imagine they do, but um, another example of a multinational company is Toyota. Toyota is a Japanese started company, but if you go to Toyota America, they have their own factories here. They make their own cars here. And they have to follow the laws of the United States. Okay, characteristics of a corporation. Um, Corporations are big companies, right? These are sometimes you're looking at a good or a service that only a big company could provide, right? Um, who can provide tanks for the United States government or airplanes, right? You got to be a big company, big corporation, right? Um, just a factory like this, right, that is making some sort of food product. You look at the machinery in this warehouse, right? Who has the money to purchase this machinery, employ a bunch of people, even though there's only one person here? That's automation, right? Automation makes it so that you don't need too many people, and you can still produce thousands and millions of these products. But the point is, it costs a lot of money to start up a company like this, right? And corporations have a lot of money, so um, that's one advantage of a corporation business model. Now, what does a corporation look like in terms of its employees and people, stakeholders? Well, you have the stockholders, right? They own the stock, which is basically ownership of the company. Now they elect the board of directors. The board of directors is like a governing board, right? It's like city council or something like that, right? The school board. These are a group of people that are in charge of overseeing the corporation, right? Now they select basically the chief executive officer, which is like the president of the company, right? Or the person who's running the company. This is the CEO runs the company. The board of directors doesn't run the company. All they do is select the CEO and oversee the CEO, and they can fire the CEO too. So they are the bosses of the CEO, but the CEO runs the company, and they run the company through their managers, and their managers through their employees, right? So if you look at this pyramid here from the CEO down, this is really the operations of the company. Above here is kind of the governing body. They might not these people might have different jobs. They might be working somewhere else, and they just might meet um, monthly or um, maybe every other week or something like that to talk about this company, right? They're not putting this is not a full-time job for the board of directors. They have It's the CEO's full-time job, and the managers and the employees. And the stakeholders, they're not even really working there. They're just casting a ballot to pick these people right here, right? That's what a corporation looks like. The advantages of a corporation is there's several of them. Limited liability, we talked about that. You can't be, they're not going to come after your personal assets if you're a stockholder in a company, if you're sued. They can raise a lot of money. All they have to do is divide the stock again, right? So say there's 100 stocks, right, to start off. They decide, hey, we're gonna issue 1,000 more stocks, and we're gonna sell these. And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna buy 10 of the 100 stocks that already exist, and we're gonna divide those into 1,000. Okay, so the other 90 stockholders, 90, they're looking at it and they're saying, well, make sure that our investment is protected. Basically, our stocks are worth more now. So the way it works is 10 turn into 1,000. So that means one stock turns into 100. So if you owned one stock before and they divide it, and they take 10 stocks and make them into 1,000. If you had 10 stocks, you have 1,000. If you had 100 stocks, you have 10,000. If you have one stock, it's worth 100 now. So that's how it works. So the people that bought early stocks, their stock goes up in value. That's why the people who got stocks early with a company like Apple or Facebook or something like that, that's why they're so rich now, because the stocks have been divided so much that their initial investment is worth millions of dollars, right? This is how people get really rich really fast. Another advantage is transfer of ownership. If you buy stocks, you can sell them the next day, right? It's that easy. So it's not going to be a problem where you have to sell all your equipment if you start a business and completely, redo your whole business model and buy new equipment and get into something different. All you're buying is you're just buying the stock. So you can trade it, sell it, whatever. So easy in, easy out. Here's a brief history of the stock market. Recently, we had some of the largest declines in the stock market, right? So here it says in 1987, they lost 22%, almost 23% of the Dow. The Dow is a index of the stock market. So it gives you an idea of the entire stock market, what it's doing. So if the Dow loses 23%, that means the stock market loses 23%, right? It's a representative sample. Recently, because of the COVID-19, we saw the stock market take plunges that were approaching this level, right? Stock market went really far down in March of this year. First internet stock was traded in 1994. I'm kicking myself because I was alive then. I should have been buying the stock of the internet, right? And I did have friends doing that. So I wonder how they must be wealthy now. Who knows? And nowadays you got billions, here, this is 2010, over 2 billion trades per day. It's a lot of trading going on. So there are some disadvantages of corporations, right? One is if you do have a company. By the way, how do you become a corporation? A lot of them they start off as sole proprietorships, right? And they're so successful that at some point in time to grow, they say, hey, let's do articles of incorporation. Let's become a corporation. Let's create stocks. Maybe it's creating stocks for a closed corporation first. Say there's 100 people like in a startup, right? And the CEO, the founder of the company, right? Say you found a company and you build a company and you surround yourself by these employees and family, and there's 100 people that are working for you at the time when you say, hey, you know what? We're gonna go corporate, and we're gonna sell some stocks. You might give those 100 people an option to buy stocks first, and say, hey, for $10,000 you can buy in right now, and then we're gonna, next year we're gonna be public, and we're gonna be on the stock exchange. And that's what they call a debut, right? The debut of a certain company on the stock exchange, right? And then people go crazy with certain companies when they debut, right? Their stock goes way up. My brother-in-law, he worked for a company, a Japanese sole proprietorship, right? Or maybe a partnership, but it was Japanese owned. He met these guys in a community college in Los Angeles, and these were Japanese guy exchange students, and he was an exchange student too from Ecuador. And so he becomes friends with these guys, and then he starts working for this company. It was a it was called Web Keepers. It was a web hosting company. And at some point in time, they went to him and they said, hey, look, we're gonna go corporate. We're gonna go on the stock exchange. But before we do that, you have an opportunity to buy stocks. Basically closed corporation, right? And he bought $10,000 worth of stocks, got every bit of savings that he could get, and he bought 10,000. And the next year when they went corporate, that 10,000 turned into close to 2 million, right? And he ended up selling shortly after that. He said cashed out, right? And the stock went down after that. So he made a good choice to sell it, right? But that's how people get really rich, right? $10,000 investment. After taxes, maybe he clears 1.5 million, right? So something to think about. Disadvantages of corporations. If you're the founder of a company and you go corporate, public corporation, you can lose control of the company, right? Somebody can come in and just buy up a majority of the stocks. Somebody owns a majority of the stocks, they have a majority of the control, because if you think about it, if each stockholder gets to vote for the board of directors, and they get to vote the number of times that they own stock, right? If you own 51% or 50% plus one of the stock, and now they're going to have an election for the board of directors, guess what? You have the majority of the votes. So you control who's on the board. The board picks the CEO. So a founder, somebody who found the company, who might own, they might own 51% of the company. If they're smart, they're going to hold on to 51% of the company so that they can keep control, right? But say they lose control because maybe the CEO decides to divide the company up, sell more stock, or the board of directors decides to do that and before the elections, right? And then they do it, and then somebody else buys up the majority of stocks. Now they have control of the company. So that's how people lose control of their companies when they go corporate. Corporate mergers. Mergers are when companies merge together, right? And there's three kinds of them, horizontal, vertical, and conglomerates. I think I talked about all those, but horizontal is when two companies making the same thing merge. Vertical is like that Time Warner example. And conglomerate is when they just start buying up different things that they don't have anything related to each other, but they're just going to make them into a big corporation conglomerate. Here's an example of a horizontal merger. Office Depot merged with Office Club. I don't remember them. And then Office Depot merged with Viking Office Products. And then finally, Office Depot merged with Office Max. I remember Office Max. So slowly growing into a bigger part of the market. So why would they want to do this? Can anybody think of any reason why a company would want to merge like this? A horizontal merger?
To have more control over the market.
Exactly. We talked about it in previous classes. If you're producing 70, 80%, if you control 70 or 80% of the market, you're basically like a monopoly. You can set the prices for the goods that are sold, right? So the more of the market you control, the more power you have in that market. And that's why they do it. Multinational corporations are just that, right? They set up in different countries, have to follow the laws in each country that they operate. An example is Disneyland. This is a picture of Disneyland outside of Paris, France. So it's Euro Disneyland. I don't know. It doesn't look as crowded as the Disneyland I'm used to seeing. I see only 4 cars right there, but maybe this is early on in their business, or maybe they weren't even open. Who knows? But I did hear that Disneyland in Paris wasn't that popular, but all that can change, right? With with time going on, and when they adapt to the European taste, they can Disneyland will look a little bit different when you go over there. So that's pretty much it. Any questions about today's lecture?
No, seemed pretty straightforward.
What's that?
I said no.
No, okay. So I'll have the assignment up later. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop recording.